The phone call came on a Tuesday morning in March. Sarah Kowalski was standing in the basement of the house her family rented, the house that had the cracked foundation and the roof that leaked every spring. She was spraying water into sealed containers stacked along the concrete walls. The mist hung in the cool air. "Sarah, it's Mr. Delgado from the farmer's market." "Hi, Mr. Delgado," she said. Her hands were wet. She switched the phone to her other ear. "I need to place an order. A big one. Can you have 400 pounds of oyster mushrooms ready by Saturday?" She stopped spraying. 400 pounds. She had been producing maybe 30 pounds a week. "Mr. Delgado, the restaurant buyers are asking for them. They're telling their friends. Word is getting out. I can sell everything you grow. Can you do it?" Sarah looked at the stacked containers. At the work she had been doing alone, in silence, for 8 months. At the impossible thing she had somehow made possible. "Yes," she said. "I can do it." She hung up and stood still in the humidity and the darkness of the basement. 6 months earlier, nobody in Jefferson County knew her name. Now people were asking for her by name. But that wasn't the beginning of this story. Jefferson County, Ohio, wasn't poor. But the Kowalski family was. Tom Kowalski had worked construction for 32 years. His hands were scarred. His back had been hurt in 2008 during the housing collapse, when jobs disappeared overnight. By 2015, he was doing odd jobs for cash. $50 here, $75 there. His wife, Marie, cleaned houses 3 days a week at $15 an hour. They owned 3 acres of land on the edge of town. The previous owner had tried to farm it. The soil was rocky. A creek ran through it sometimes during heavy rains, then dried up completely in summer. No development company wanted it. No bank would finance a loan against it. Sarah was the middle of 3 children. Her older brother, James, had gone to Ohio State. He worked in Columbus now. Her younger sister, Emma, had married a dentist. They lived in a house with an actual mortgage and a 2-car garage. Sarah had started waitressing at Maggie's Diner right after high school. Minimum wage plus tips. She worked doubles on weekends. By age 26, she had saved $9,000. It was sitting in a savings account at the credit union. It was supposed to be for something. She didn't know what yet. Her parents didn't ask her about it. They knew what it was for. It was the beginning of escape. In November of 2017, her father found a book on the sidewalk outside the public library. Someone had left it on a bench. It was old, published in 1993. The Complete Mushroom Cultivator, a practical guide to growing mushrooms at home. Tom brought it home. He set it on the kitchen table. "Thought you might want this," he said to Sarah. She was sitting there eating leftovers from her shift. She picked up the book. She opened it randomly and read a page about oyster mushroom spawn and substrate preparation. "Why are you giving me this?" she asked. "I don't know," her father said. Something just felt right about it. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she took the book to her room. She read it at night after shifts. She read it on her days off. She found more books at the library. She watched videos on an old laptop she'd bought used for $200. Mushroom cultivation wasn't complicated. It was precise. It required consistency. It required patience. The basic principle was straightforward. Mushrooms didn't need soil. They didn't need sunlight. They needed the right substrate, a material they could feed on. They needed humidity. They needed temperature control. That was it. She started researching the economics. Oyster mushrooms sold for $4 to $6 per pound at farmers markets. The materials to grow them cost maybe 40 cents per pound. If she could grow them reliably, the margin was massive. One night in January, she went to her father. "I want to try something," she said. "Okay," he said. He was sitting in his recliner watching the news. The volume was low. "I want to quit the diner. I want to use my savings to build a mushroom growing operation in the basement. I think I can make money at it." He muted the television. He looked at her for a long moment. "How much money do you think you can make?" he asked. "I don't know for sure. Maybe $3,000 a month if I scale it properly. Maybe more. That's decent money, he said. But what if it doesn't work? What if I lose my savings and we have no income from me at all? He was quiet. He unmuted the television. You're the only one in this family who's ever asked yourself a hard question and then tried to answer it, he said finally. Go do it. She quit the diner in February. Her last shift was a Friday. She walked out with a check for $200 and a card signed by the other waitresses. She spent the first week setting up the basement. She bought clear plastic storage containers. She drilled holes in them. She bought straw, wood chips, grain spawn. She built shelves from lumber and cinder blocks. She installed a timer and a mister for humidity control. On February 18th, she inoculated her first batch of substrate with oyster mushroom spawn. 30 containers total. She sealed them and placed them in the dark corner of the basement to colonize. The waiting began. She told her family what she was doing. She didn't tell anyone else. Her mother asked questions about the moisture levels. Her father just nodded and left her alone. By mid-March, white mycelium, the root structure of the mushroom, had filled the containers. This was the critical moment. She moved them to a sheltered area with indirect light. She sprayed them twice a day with the mister. Nothing happened for 4 days. On day 5, she saw tiny pins forming. Mushroom primordia. Within a week, small fruiting bodies had formed. By day 12, they were ready to harvest. She cut them carefully with a knife. The first batch yielded 12 pounds of oyster mushrooms. They were beautiful. The caps were firm. The smell was clean and earthy. She took them to the farmer's market on Saturday morning. A vendor named Mr. Delgado ran a stand that sold to restaurant buyers. He looked at her mushrooms carefully. He smelled them. He felt them. These are good, he said. Where are you growing these? In my basement, she said. He raised an eyebrow. But he bought them. All 12 pounds. He paid her $4.50 per pound. She left with $54 and change. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She inoculated another batch. And another. By April, she had 4 cycles going. By May, she was producing 25 pounds a week. By July, she was producing 40 pounds a week. But something was wrong. In August, a batch got contaminated. The containers developed green mold instead of mycelium. All 30 containers had to be thrown away. 40 pounds of lost product. Lost money. She sat in the basement and cried. She had already bought materials for the next cycle. The money was running low again. She had rent to pay. She had property taxes. She had utility bills. She called an old farmer named Pete Morrison who she'd found through a mushroom growers forum online. He lived 40 minutes away and had been growing mushrooms for 15 years. I can come look, he said. Tomorrow. He arrived on a Tuesday morning. He was 71 years old. He wore a cap and work clothes that smelled like earth. They went down to the basement. Show me your process, he said. Sarah showed him. She explained the spawn preparation, the substrate mixing, the colonization conditions, the fruiting conditions. He looked at the failed containers. Your humidity is too high, he said finally. You're creating an environment that favors mold over mycelium. The temperature is also fluctuating more than it should. Look at these marks on the walls. You have condensation issues. He showed her the watermarks. He was right. The humidity was hovering at 95%. Oyster mushrooms want around 80 to 85%, he said. You need better air circulation. And your temperature is swinging more than 5 degrees daily. You need insulation. How do I fix it? She asked. Ventilation fans. And you need to insulate the north wall and the corner window. That's where the cold is coming from. Pete helped her install the fans and weather stripping. The whole job cost $200. Money she didn't have. I can pay you back, Sarah said. Once the next batch. No, Pete said. He was looking around the basement. At the stacked containers. At the careful organization. At the work of someone who was trying to build something. You can give me some mushrooms. Fresh ones, once you get a good harvest. By the end of September, the humidity was stable. The temperature was holding between 65 and 70 degrees. A new batch colonized perfectly. The fruiting was heavy. She harvested 60 pounds. Mr. Delgado bought them all. By November, she was producing 90 pounds a week. By January, she was producing 120 pounds a week. She was working 16-hour days. She was filling orders from Mr. Delgado and 2 other restaurant suppliers. She was making $2,000 a month. Her mother stopped cleaning houses. Her father started helping her in the basement. They built more shelves. They organized the workflow. Her younger sister Emma, the one who had married the dentist, asked how much Sarah was actually making. "More than you think," Sarah said. Emma didn't smile. In early February, Tom Kowalski had a conversation with Frank Mitchell, who worked at the bank where the Kowalskis had their account. Frank was Tom's age. They knew each other from church. "I hear your daughter is doing something in the basement," Frank said. "Yeah," Tom said. "She's growing mushrooms." "Making money?" Frank asked. "Yeah, pretty good money." Frank looked at him. "Have you thought about scaling it? Getting real space?" "She doesn't have capital for real space," Tom said. "How much would she need?" $50,000 maybe. For a building. For climate control systems. Equipment. "Let me talk to the owner," Frank said. "See if we can do something." The bank approved a $35,000 small business loan. The interest rate was high, but it was possible. Sarah leased a warehouse space on the edge of town. It was 5,000 square feet. The landlord was willing to rent it month to month at $1,500 a month. "This is crazy," her mother said. "We can't afford that." "We can with the loan," Sarah said. "And I can make it with production." She was 27 years old. The warehouse build-out took 3 months. She installed shelving. She installed climate control. She bought professional-grade humidifiers and temperature sensors. She set up 48 separate growing stations. Pete Morrison helped. He also helped train her mother and father on the technical details. Her brother James came down from Columbus one weekend and helped with the electrical work. In May, the new operation came online. She produced 420 pounds in the first month, 600 pounds in the second month. By July, she was producing 800 pounds a month. The cost per pound had dropped to 25 cents. She was making $4,000 a month. Then the restaurant closed. One of her 3 major buyers, a place called Riverside Kitchen, shut down suddenly. The owner had invested money in a stock market scheme. He lost everything. The restaurant folded in 2 weeks. Sarah lost 20% of her revenue overnight. She had loan payments. She had warehouse rent. She had utility bills. The margin looked smaller now. But then something unexpected happened. 2 weeks after Riverside Kitchen closed, a food distributor from Cincinnati came to visit. His name was Richard Hayes. He was 45 years old. He ran a network of 17 restaurants across southern Ohio. "I heard about your operation," he said. "I want to contract with you. I'll take everything you can produce at $5 per pound. I'll do a 1-year commitment." Sarah did the math in her head. At 800 pounds per month, that was $4,000. But with his guarantee, she could plan expansion. She could hire help. "I want to grow to 2,000 pounds a month," she said. "How long?" he asked. 8 months, she said. "Do it," he said. "I'll be your anchor customer." By the following spring, Sarah had hired 2 employees. A woman named Diane who had worked in greenhouse operations, and a younger man named Marcus who had no experience but worked hard. They trained him. Production hit 2,400 pounds in April. The revenue was $24,000 that month. The Kowalski family owned their rental house outright now. The bank had paid off the arrears. They weren't rich, but they weren't poor anymore. Sarah's mother was working full-time in the warehouse. Her father was the operations manager. Her brother James came down every other weekend to help with expansion planning. Her sister Emma asked if she could invest in the business. Sarah said no. She said it politely, but she said no. In June, the County Economic Development Board asked Sarah to speak at a business forum. She talked about scaling production, about the margins, about the possibility of the mushroom industry creating jobs in the county. After her presentation, 17 people approached her asking how they could start their own operations. Within a year, 6 other mushroom farms had opened in Jefferson County. They weren't competing with Sarah. They were complementing her. They had formed a cooperative that could supply restaurants and distributors at higher volumes. The average starting investment for a small mushroom operation was $12,000. 6 operations meant $72,000 flowing into the county economy. A reporter from the Columbus Dispatch came and did a feature story. The headline was, "From Basement to Business: How One Woman Built a Mushroom Empire." The article mentioned that Sarah Kowalski had grown up in poverty, that her father had been injured and unemployed, that she had invested her entire life savings, $9,000, into an idea that could have failed. The article quoted her father. "She didn't wait for luck to happen. She worked for it. That's the difference." After the article was published, Sarah got calls from business schools asking if she would speak to their entrepreneurship classes. A local bank wanted to create a Kowalski fund for small business loans. The wealthy families in Jefferson County who had once looked away from the Kowalski family now looked toward them. But Sarah wasn't interested in jealousy or vindication. She was interested in the work. 2 years later, Sarah opened a training facility. For $500, aspiring mushroom growers could come spend a week learning the complete process. They could take samples of spawn home with them. They could join the cooperative. 53 people attended in the first year. 12 of them started operations. The warehouse that Sarah had leased for $1,500 a month was now occupied by other growers. She had built a new facility on 2 acres of land her father had purchased. One afternoon, Sarah and her father were standing outside the new facility, watching employees moving materials inside. "Do you remember that book I found?" Tom asked. "On the library bench," Sarah said. "I left it there on purpose," Tom said. "I was cleaning up around there, and I found someone else's copy. I thought maybe someone needed to find it." Sarah looked at him. "How did you know I needed it?" she asked. "I didn't know for certain," he said. "But I knew you were looking for something. Something that would prove you didn't have to accept what everyone else had already decided about us." They stood there in the afternoon sun. The warehouse hummed with activity behind them. "What does it feel like?" Tom asked. "Knowing that you changed things?" Sarah thought about the question. "It feels like responsibility," she said finally. "Not like victory." Tom nodded. He understood. A year later, Sarah was invited to speak at a statewide agricultural conference. The organizers asked her for a quote they could use in their promotional materials. She thought about what she wanted to say. About poverty and possibility. About the work that comes before the success. About the people who believe in you when you don't believe in yourself yet. She gave them this: "Poverty teaches you to see value in what others have discarded. I learned to grow abundance in a basement because I understood that waste is just opportunity waiting to be recognized.